Hello, my friends, and welcome. I'm so glad you've decided to join me tonight. Before we begin, I want you to take a moment to settle in. Dim the lights, find your most comfortable chair, and leave the busyness of the world behind. Tonight, we're stepping into the shadows to share a few stories that are as true as they are unsettling. So, take a deep breath, get cozy, and let's explore the dark together. Let me know where are you watching from and what time is in there. In 2013, the Washington Navy Yard shooter, Aaron Alexis, carved the words "my ELF weapon" into his shotgun. He believed government agents had implanted a chip in his head. They called him delusional. In 2011, a man named Tim Hart received an email from his best friend Jack, who had died 5 months earlier. The email contained private details only Jack could know. No one has ever explained how. And in the early 1990s, a grainy VHS tape surfaced showing a young man with a stutter holding a genuine human skull, giving detailed instructions on how to rob graves. The tape was sold in underground horror compilations. The man in the video was never identified. These are not ghost stories. These are documented incidents. Real people. Real evidence. And what I am about to tell you connects to all of them in ways I still do not fully understand. This is my testimony. Every word of it is true. My name is Marcus Webb, and until 8 months ago, I worked as a content moderator for a tech company in Portland, Oregon. I am 29 years old. I live alone in a small studio apartment in the Pearl District. My job was to review flagged videos and live streams, looking for violations of our terms of service. Violence, harassment, copyright infringement, that sort of thing. It was not glamorous work, but it paid well, and I could do it from home. I mention this because what happened to me started with a video. A live stream, actually. And because of what I saw, because of what I did, someone has been watching me ever since. Someone who should not exist. Someone who knows things they could not possibly know. The stream appeared in my queue on a Tuesday morning in March, flagged by our automated system for unusual activity patterns and potential harassment content. The thumbnail showed a cluttered apartment, dimly lit, with a woman asleep on a mattress on the floor. Nothing immediately alarming. But the flag count was unusually high, which meant multiple users had reported it. I clicked play. The quality was poor, grainy, like footage from an old webcam. The woman on the mattress was maybe 30 years old, thin, with dark circles under her eyes, even in sleep. The apartment was a mess. Clothes piled in corners, empty food containers, papers scattered everywhere. A blue air freshener hung from a shelf near the bed. I could see Korean characters on some of the papers. The timestamp in the corner showed the stream had been running for 6 hours. At first I thought it was just another case of someone accidentally leaving their camera on. It happens more often than you would think. But then I noticed the view count. Over 3,000 people were watching this woman sleep. And the chat was what made my stomach turn. She is going to wake up soon. Watch her ankle. The cop did this to her. She is telling the truth. Chip Chan is in danger. Someone needs to help her. Chip Chan. I had heard that name before. Years ago, somewhere on Reddit. A woman in South Korea who claimed a corrupt police officer had implanted a tracking device in her ankle. She had been live streaming her life since 2008, trying to document her persecution. Most people thought she was mentally ill. Paranoid schizophrenia was the common diagnosis in online discussions. But here was her stream in my queue with thousands of people watching. And something about it felt wrong. Not wrong in the way you would expect. Wrong in a way I could not quite name. I watched for 20 minutes. The woman did not move. The chat continued scrolling. Users from all over the world talking about her like she was a character in a show. Some expressed concern. Others mocked her. And then, at exactly the 21-minute mark, something happened. The woman's leg twitched. It was violent. Sudden. Like an electric shock had passed through her body. Her ankle jerked upward. And even through the poor quality video, I could see a strange bulge beneath her skin. Something underneath. Something that should not be there. The chat exploded. There. Did you see it? The implant is activating. They are watching her right now. Someone needs to call the police and Saul. I closed the video. Marked it for further review. Sent it up the chain. But did not stop thinking about it. That twitch. That bulge. The way 3,000 people were watching this woman suffering like it was entertainment. That night, I made a mistake. I looked her up. The Chip Chen rabbit hole was deep. Forum posts going back 15 years. YouTube compilations. Reddit threads with thousands of comments. People had been trying to help her for over a decade, trying to figure out who she was, trying to get authorities involved. No one had succeeded. But the more I read, the more I noticed something strange. Certain details kept repeating across different sources. Details that seemed too specific to be coincidence. The blue air freshener. Always positioned in the same spot. The papers with Korean writing, always scattered in the same pattern. The way she would wake up at odd hours. Disoriented. Claiming she had been paralyzed by the officer monitoring her. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. A forum post from 2019. A user claiming they had worked in surveillance technology for the South Korean government. They said the implant was real. That the technology existed. That there was a classified program from the 1980s where experimental tracking chips were tested on mental patients without consent. The program had been shut down officially in 1985, right around the time India banned the export of human remains, cutting off the black market for medical skeletons. The connection seemed absurd. What did skeletal black markets have to do with surveillance implants? But the user claimed that the program had continued underground, that subjects were monitored remotely, that some were still alive, still being watched, and that anyone who dug too deep into their cases would become targets themselves. The post had been deleted, but I had found it archived. I should have stopped there. I should have closed my laptop and walked away. But I did not. I started taking screenshots, documenting everything, building a file. I told myself I was just being thorough, that this was part of my job. But really, I was obsessed. I wanted to understand. I wanted to prove whether this woman was genuinely suffering or just trapped in her own delusions. 2 days later, I received an email. The subject line was blank. The sender was an address I did not recognize. A string of random numbers and letters at a free email service. When I opened it, there was no message. Just an attachment. A video file. I downloaded it. I should not have. I know that now. The video was grainy. Shot on an old VHS camera, probably from the late 1980s or early 1990s. It showed a young man, maybe 18 or 19, holding a human skull. He had a stutter. He spoke directly to the camera, explaining in disturbing detail how to rob graves, how to exhume bodies, how to clean bones for sale. "This is real easy if you know what you are doing," he said, holding the skull up to the camera. "You just need to know which graves to hit, which cemeteries do not have security. We have been doing this for months, made good money, and next, we are going to hit the big one. Harry Houdini. His grave is right here in Queens. Easy access on the J train. I recognized the video immediately. Grave robbing for morons. The underground horror tape that had circulated in the 90s. The one where no one had ever identified the kid. The one that might have been responsible for the vandalism at Houdini's grave in 1993. But why was someone sending this to me? What did it have to do with Chip Chan? At the bottom of the email, below the video file, there was a single line of text I had missed at first. They are watching you now, Marcus. Just like they watched her. Check your webcam. My hands were shaking as I looked up at my laptop camera. The little green light was off. It always stayed off unless I was in a video call. But as I stared at it, I noticed something. A tiny piece of tape, clear tape, covering the indicator light. I had not put it there. I ripped the tape off. The light beneath was on. Solid green. My camera had been active. For how long? Hours? Days? I had no way of knowing. I slammed the laptop shut, grabbed my phone, started to dial 911. But then I stopped. What would I even say? Someone sent me a creepy email and my webcam was on. They would think I was paranoid. They would think I was like her. Instead, I called my internet service provider. Asked them to check my network for unauthorized access. They put me on hold for 30 minutes before telling me everything looked normal. No signs of intrusion. I must have accidentally enabled the camera myself. But I had not. I knew I had not. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about the email, about the video, about the timing. Someone had been watching me research Chip Chan. Someone had known I would be interested in that old VHS tape. Someone wanted me to make the connection. The next morning, another email arrived. Same sender. Same blank subject line. This time, the message read, Timothy Hart received an email from his dead friend in 2011. The email contained details only his friend could have known. But his friend had been dead for 5 months. How did he send it, Marcus? How did he know about the broken ankle that happened after his death? I felt sick. I knew the story. The Jack Froh emails. One of the great unsolved internet mysteries. A man receives messages from his best friend who died 5 months earlier. The messages contain private information, inside jokes, details that could not be fabricated. And then Jack's cousin received an email referencing an injury that occurred after Jack's death, making the scheduled email theory impossible. No one had ever explained it. No one could. But someone was using it now. Using it to make a point. To show me something. I spent the entire day researching posthumous emails. Delayed send services. Dead man switches. Digital legacy platforms. There were dozens of apps designed to let people send messages after death. Death Switch. Phoenix. They all worked the same way. You schedule messages. You set up triggers. When you die, the messages send. But none of them could account for information that happened after death. None of them could explain Jack's cousin receiving a message about a broken ankle that occurred 4 months after Jack died. Unless Jack had not written the emails. Unless someone else had. Someone who had access to Jack's accounts. Someone who knew intimate details about his life and his friends' lives. Someone who had been watching all along. I checked my own accounts. Emailed. Social media. Cloud storage. Everything seemed secure. 2-factor authentication enabled. No unauthorized logins. But the feeling of being watched would not go away. 3 days later, I found the photos. They were uploaded to my cloud storage at 3:14 a.m. While I was asleep. 3 images, all taken from outside my apartment building. The first showed my living room window from the street. The second showed my bedroom window from the fire escape. The third showed me, sitting at my desk, visible through the window working on my laptop. I was wearing the same shirt I had worn that day. The photo had been taken recently, maybe even that night. I called the police, filed a report. They took my statement, looked at the photos, asked if I had any enemies, any ex-partners who might be harassing me. I said no. They said they would patrol the area, but there was not much they could do. No threats had been made. No laws had been broken. Just some creepy photos. Probably just some kid messing with you, the officer said. Change your passwords. Keep your curtains closed. Call us if anything else happens. But something else was already happening. The next email arrived at midnight. I was awake, sitting in my dark apartment, all the curtains drawn, watching my door, my windows, waiting for something to happen. The subject line this time was different. You asked the wrong questions, Marcus. I opened it. There was a link. A YouTube link. I clicked it. The video was a live stream. Active. Currently broadcasting. The thumbnail showed a cluttered room. My room. My apartment. Someone was streaming me. Right now. Live. I could see myself in the frame, sitting at my desk, laptop open, staring at the screen. The view count showed 43 people watching. The chat was active. He is going to figure it out soon. He should have left it alone. Does he know about the others? I slammed my laptop shut again. Grabbed my phone. The stream was still going. I could see it on my phone screen. The camera angle was from my bookshelf. I looked up. There, tucked between two books, was a tiny black device. A camera. Wireless. Recording everything. I ripped it down. Smashed it on the floor. My phone buzzed. Another email. Breaking the cameras does not stop us, Marcus. We have been watching since you opened that first file. Just like we watched her. Just like we watched all of them. You wanted to know if the implants were real. You wanted to know how the dead send emails. You wanted to know who made the grave robbing video. Now you are part of the documentation. Another case study. Another subject. Welcome to the program. I grabbed my keys. My wallet. Ran for the door. But when I opened it, there was something on the floor outside. A VHS tape. Old. Worn. With a label written in faded marker. Subject 047. Webb, Marcus. Initial surveillance. Day 1. I took the tape to the police. Brought everything. The emails, the photos, the camera I had found, the VHS tape. They listened. They took notes. They sent the tape to their tech unit for analysis. 2 weeks later, they called me in. Said they had reviewed everything. Said the VHS tape was blank. Nothing on it. The camera I found was a standard consumer device, available online. No way to trace who purchased it. The emails were sent through an anonymous service with servers in multiple countries. Untraceable. The YouTube stream had been taken down for violating community guidelines, but there was no record of who created the account. Dead ends. All of it. Look, the detective said, leaning back in his chair. I am going to be honest with you. This kind of thing, this targeted individual stuff, we see it a lot. People who believe they are being watched by government agencies, secret programs, mind control experiments. It is a documented phenomenon. There are whole online communities dedicated to it. Have you considered speaking with someone? A therapist, maybe? I left the station. Drove home. Sat in my car for an hour before going inside. They thought I was delusional. They thought I was like Chip Chan. Like the Navy Yard shooter. Like all the others who claim they are being watched, being tracked, being controlled. Maybe I am. But I have done my research. I know the history. I know about the CIA's MK Ultra program. I know about COINTELPRO. I know about the experimental tracking implants tested on mental patients in South Korea in the 1980s. I know about the black market for human remains that disappeared when India banned exports in 1985. I know about the posthumous emails that cannot be explained. I know about the grave-robbing video where the kid was never identified. I know these things are connected. I know someone has been documenting them, building a database, studying subjects, and I know I am one of them now. I moved out of my apartment 3 months ago. I live in a different city now, different state. I do not work in content moderation anymore. I keep all my cameras covered. I do not use social media. I check my accounts every day for unauthorized access. I have found 3 more cameras since the first one. One in my new apartment, one in my car, one in the library I sometimes visit. I destroy them when I find them, but they always come back. Last week, I received another email. Subject line, research complete. Moving to phase 2. Inside was a video file. I have not opened it. I am afraid of what I will see. Afraid it will be another VHS tape. Another grave. Another skull. Or maybe it will be me. A live stream of me sleeping. A documentation of my deterioration. Proof that I have become what I was studying. I am sharing this because I want people to understand. Targeted individuals are not all delusional. Some of us have evidence. Some of us can prove we are being watched. But when you try to prove it, when you bring that evidence forward, the system is designed to make you look crazy. Chip Chan has been streaming for 16 years. Thousands of people have watched her, and no one has helped her. Because the moment you suggest the surveillance is real, the moment you claim there is a program, a conspiracy, an implant, you become the problem. You become the crazy one. I do not know what phase 2 means. I do not know what they want from me. But I know I am not alone. There are others. People who received emails from the dead that contained impossible information. People who found their graves desecrated and their remains missing. People who woke up with strange marks on their bodies and no memory of how they got there. We are all connected, all part of something larger, something that has been operating for decades. And if you are reading this, if you have ever felt watched, if you have ever received a message you could not explain, if you have ever found something in your home that should not be there, then maybe you are part of it too. I still check that live stream sometimes. Chip Chan's stream. She is still broadcasting, still sleeping in that messy apartment with the blue air freshener, still twitching at odd hours, still claiming she is being controlled. And I believe her now. I believe all of them. Because they are watching me too. The detective told me to see a therapist. I did. She diagnosed me with paranoid anxiety and prescribed medication. I take it every day. But the cameras keep appearing. The emails keep coming. And last night, I woke up at 3 a.m. with my leg twitching. A violent spasm. Just like hers. I checked my ankle this morning. There is a small bump, just beneath the skin. Something that was not there before. I do not know what it is. I do not want to know. But I can feel it. Sometimes when I sit very still, I can feel it moving. They say trust your instincts. I did not. And now I am paying the price. I will probably pay it for the rest of my life. If you are reading this and you think I am crazy, that is fine. That is exactly what they want you to think. But if you are reading this and you have experienced something similar, if you have felt watched, if you have found evidence, if you have tried to tell someone and they did not believe you, then I want you to know you are not alone. We are being documented. All of us. And one day, someone is going to open a file, or play a video, or receive an email. And they are going to understand what we have been trying to say all along. Until then, cover your cameras, check your accounts, trust no one, and whatever you do, do not dig too deep. Because once you start asking questions, once you start connecting the dots, once you make yourself visible to them, they will never stop watching. I learned it the hard way, and now I am part of the archive too. In 1941, Argentine writer Jorge Luis Borges published a short story called The Library of Babel. It described an infinite library containing every possible book that could ever be written, using just 25 characters. Every truth, every lie, every moment of your life, recorded somewhere in those hexagonal galleries. Borges called it a metaphor for the universe. But what if it was not a metaphor? What if someone or something has actually been building it? In the 9th century, Chinese Buddhists described the 10 kings of hell as bureaucrats, magistrates who administered a 3-year journey through courts, where every sin was documented, recorded, and archived. Not punishment for evil, just cold, clerical documentation. And in 2008, a woman in South Korea began live streaming her life, claiming corrupt authorities had implanted a chip in her ankle to monitor and control her. Thousands watched her for 16 years. No one helped her. Because the moment you claim you are being documented, being archived, being watched by an infinite system, you become the crazy one. These are not unrelated incidents. They are all parts of the same archive, the same infinite documentation. And what I am about to tell you is my testimony of how I became part of it too. Every word is true. I have the evidence. But by the end, you will understand why evidence no longer matters. My name is David Monroe, and until 7 months ago, I worked as a data recovery specialist in Boston, Massachusetts. I am 32 years old. I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in Cambridge. My job was to retrieve deleted files, corrupted hard drives, lost data from failed systems. Digital archaeology, essentially. Recovering things people thought were gone forever. I mention this because what happened to me started with a recovery job. A simple freelance gig from a client I had never met. And because of what I found, because of what I recovered, I have been trying to delete myself from existence ever since. Trying to remove my records from an archive that should not exist. An archive that has been recording everything, everyone, every moment, for longer than you can imagine. The job request came through an encrypted email in late April. No name, just a string of numbers. The message was brief. They had a damaged external hard drive, water damage, physical corruption. They would pay triple my normal rate for complete discretion. No questions asked. The drive would be delivered to a storage locker, combination provided. I would leave the recovered data on a secure server, collect payment in cryptocurrency. It was sketchy, obviously sketchy, but triple rate, and I needed the money. The drive arrived exactly as promised. 4 terabytes. Old model, maybe 10 years out of date. The casing was covered in something that looked like dried mud. When I opened it in my clean room, I found something strange. The platters inside were not just corroded by water. There were patterns in the corrosion. Deliberate patterns. Like someone had etched them there on purpose. It took me 3 weeks to recover anything usable. Fragments mostly. Corrupted video files. Damaged databases. Text documents with massive sections missing. But as I pieced it together, I started to see something. A structure. An organization. The files were labeled with alphanumeric codes. Each code corresponded to a person. A complete person. Birth date, death date, GPS coordinates for every moment of their life. Medical records. financial transactions, every email they sent, every text message, every phone call, every website they visited, every camera that ever captured their face, every microphone that ever recorded their voice. Complete documentation, cradle to grave. I found 12,000 individual files on that drive. 12,000 complete human lives, archived in perfect detail. The earliest entries dated back to 1987. The most recent was from 2019. I sat in my workshop at 2 in the morning, staring at the screen, trying to comprehend what I was looking at. This was not government surveillance. It was too complete, too thorough. Governments are sloppy. They miss things. This missed nothing. I opened one file at random. Subject 78493. Jennifer Wallace. Born July 19th, 1973. In Portland. Died March 2nd, 2014. In a car accident. In Vermont. 41 years old. The file contained everything. Her kindergarten report cards. Her college transcripts. Her wedding video. Her divorce paperwork. Her medical history. Her therapy sessions. Her credit card statements. Every photograph anyone had ever taken of her. Every social media post. Every Google search. Every private conversation she thought was deleted. There was even a transcript of her final moments. The timestamp from her car's GPS. The audio from her final phone call to her sister. The exact coordinates where she lost control of her vehicle. The medical examiner's report. The funeral home receipt. Complete documentation. Nothing missing. I should have stopped there. I should have wiped the drive, returned the cryptocurrency, and walked away. But I did not. I started searching the files, looking for patterns, trying to understand who had compiled this data, how they had accessed it, why they needed it. That is when I found the directory labeled Active Monitoring. The Active Monitoring directory contained a different kind of file. Not complete archives of dead people. Partial archives of living people. People who were still generating data. Still being recorded. The list contained over 800,000 entries. Names I recognized. Politicians. Celebrities. Business executives. But also random people. Teachers. Mechanics. Students. Retirees. No pattern I could identify. Each entry had a status indicator. Most were marked Standard Observation. Some were marked Enhanced Surveillance. A few were marked Archival Priority. I searched for my own name. Nothing. I searched for my mother's name. Nothing. I searched for my best friend from college. There he was. Marcus Chen. Status. Standard Observation. The file contained GPS data from his phone, updated every 60 seconds. Screenshots from his laptop webcam captured every 30 minutes. Audio recordings from his smart speaker, cataloged by date and time. Credit card transactions. Health insurance claims. Everything. He had no idea. Nobody on this list had any idea they were being documented. I closed the file. My hands were shaking. I stood up, walked to my kitchen, poured myself a drink, tried to think rationally. This had to be illegal. This had to be some kind of massive criminal operation. Hacking. Identity theft. Corporate espionage. Something I could report to the FBI. But as I stood there, something occurred to me. Something that made my stomach turn. If they were monitoring 800,000 people, and this was just one damaged drive from one location, how many drives were there? How many locations? How many people were being archived? I went back to the workshop, started examining the metadata, the directory structure, the file creation dates. The oldest files on the drive dated back to 1987, but The metadata suggested they had been transferred from an earlier system. The transfer notes referenced legacy archive migration and included a reference code, BA974B-12. I searched for other reference codes in the recovered data. Found dozens of them. Hundreds of them. Each one pointing to a different archive location. A different set of drives. A different facility. And then I found something that made me stop breathing. A text document. Corrupted, mostly unreadable. But I managed to recover 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph read, "The universe, which others call the library, is composed of an indefinite and perhaps infinite number of hexagonal galleries." I recognized it immediately. It was from Borges, from the Library of Babel. But the quotation continued with text that was not in the original story. The archive serves the same function. Every gallery, every hexagon, contains the complete documentation of every human consciousness that has existed or will exist. The work is not punitive. It is clerical. We do not judge. We do not intervene. We simply document. This is the purpose. The second paragraph was a technical specification. Instructions for data storage architecture. But the numbers did not make sense. Exabytes of storage. Petabytes per individual subject. Storage facilities described by geographic coordinates that did not correspond to any building I could find on satellite maps. The third paragraph was the worst. Subject mortality does not conclude observation. Post-mortem documentation continues indefinitely. The archive of the deceased is maintained in Wing 7. Current capacity, 4.8 billion complete records. Estimated completion of human species documentation, 94%. 4.8 billion. Roughly the number of humans who had died since 1987. They were archiving everyone. Everyone who had ever lived since the advent of digital technology. And they were still going. Still recording. Still documenting. I checked the timestamp on the document. It was created 6 months ago. That night, I did something stupid. I sent an email to the anonymous client who had hired me. I told them I had questions. I told them I needed to understand what I had recovered. I told them I wanted to meet. They responded within 5 minutes. The email contained a single line of text and an attachment. The text read, "You should not have looked, David." The attachment was a file. My file. Subject 472986. Status, archival priority. Last update, 4 minutes ago. They had been watching me the entire time. I did not sleep that night. I sat at my desk, staring at my own archive. They had documented everything. My childhood medical records. My college application, essays. Every job I had ever applied for. Every relationship I had ever had. Every private conversation. Every email. Every text. Every photo. Every video. But it went deeper than that. They had documentation I did not even know existed. Conversations I had forgotten. Moments captured by security cameras I never noticed. Audio recordings from phones I thought were turned off. Screenshots from my laptop taken while I slept. GPS coordinates tracking my exact location every second of every day for the past 11 years. The file was massive. Over 6 terabytes. An entire human life compressed into data. And at the bottom of the archive there was a section labeled Predictive Analysis. It contained projected future events, statistical models of my likely behaviors, decisions, relationships, career moves, calculated probabilities for my death, broken down by cause. Car accident, 47%. Heart disease, 23%. Suicide, 11%. They were not just documenting the past. They were predicting the future, archiving events that had not happened yet. I closed the file, pulled the network cable from my computer, covered my webcam with tape, turned off my phone. For 3 days I stayed offline. I used cash for everything. I avoided cameras. I tried to think of a way out. On the 4th day, I received a letter. Not an email. An actual physical letter slipped under my apartment door while I was sleeping. The envelope was unmarked. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. David, you cannot delete yourself. The archive is not a database. It is a dimension. You exist within it whether you participate or not. The only question is whether you will join us in maintaining it, or whether you will be archived as a subject who attempted to resist. Either way, your documentation continues. Signed, the archivists. Below the signature was a phone number. I stared at that number for hours. Part of me wanted to call. Part of me wanted to run. Part of me wanted to burn everything and disappear into the woods somewhere they could never find me. Instead, I did what I do best. I investigated. I started researching data storage, government surveillance programs, corporate data collection, trying to find evidence of an organization capable of this scale of documentation. And I found something. Multiple things. First, I found academic papers about data persistence and storage architecture. One paper, published in 2015, discussed theoretical models for exabyte-scale storage using distributed networks and redundant systems. The lead author was a professor at MIT named Dr. Eleanor Vance. She had disappeared in 2017. No investigation. No missing person report. Just gone. Second, I found references to a private company called Archival Solutions International. They specialized in data recovery, digital preservation, and long-term storage. Corporate clients only. No public website. No listed employees. The company was registered in Liechtenstein in 1989. That was the same year the first digital files appeared in the archive. Third, I found forum posts from people who claimed they had worked for the archive. Most were dismissed as conspiracy theorists or creative writers. But their descriptions matched what I had seen. Hexagonal data centers. Vast underground facilities. Levels of access determined by how much you knew. The deeper you went, the more you understood. And the more you understood, the less human you became. One post, from 2013, stuck with me. The user claimed they had worked in Wing 7, the archive for the deceased. They described it as an infinite library. Rows and rows of servers, each one containing complete documentation of a human life. The deceased were not punished. They were not judged. They simply existed, their entire consciousness preserved in data, accessible to anyone with the right clearance. The user wrote, "You have to understand, the archive is not evil. It is not malicious. It is simply indifferent. It does not care if you lived a good life or a terrible one. It does not care if you suffered or thrived. It just records. That is the horror. Not that we are being watched, but that we are being documented by something that will never care what it finds." The post ended with a warning. If you are reading this and you think you have found evidence of the archive, stop looking. They are watching you now. They will offer you a choice. Join them or be archived. Either way, you lose your humanity. I chose wrong. Do not make my mistake. The account was deleted 3 days after the post appeared. I tried to find more information about the user. Searched every archive, every cached page, every digital trace. Nothing. It was like they had never existed. That is when I realized what the archive really was. It was not just documentation. It was deletion. They were removing people from reality and replacing them with data. Perfect, complete, eternal data. And I was next. The phone calls started a week later. Not on my regular phone. On devices I did not own. The smart TV in my apartment turned on at 3 in the morning, displaying a single message. Answer when we called, David. My car radio started broadcasting a voice. No station, no interference. Just a calm, neutral voice speaking directly to me. You have been selected for archival priority. This is not negotiable. This is not punishment. This is documentation. Accept it. I stopped driving. Started taking buses. Used cash. Avoided security cameras. Tried to become invisible. But they found me anyway. I received another letter. This one contained coordinates. A location in rural Vermont. An invitation. Come see where you will spend eternity. Bring nothing. You will not need anything. I did not want to go. But I needed to understand. Needed to see it. I rented a car under a fake name. Paid cash. Drove 6 hours north. The coordinates led to an abandoned warehouse complex in the middle of nowhere. No signs. No guards. Just a steel door with a numeric keypad. The combination was my birthday. Inside, the warehouse was empty. Concrete floors. Metal walls. Nothing but a single elevator at the far end. The elevator had no buttons. The doors closed automatically when I stepped inside. It descended for over 5 minutes. No sound. No indicator of how far down I was going. Just the sensation of falling. When the doors opened, I stepped out into a hexagonal gallery. The space was vast. Endless. Walls lined with servers, each one labeled with alphanumeric codes. The air was cold, perfectly controlled. The lights were dim, insufficient, exactly like Borges described. I could see other galleries above and below me, connected by spiral staircases, each one identical to the one I stood in. I walked forward, found a terminal. The screen displayed a single prompt. Search archive. I typed my own name. My file appeared instantly. Subject 472986. Status: archival priority. Current location: Wing 4, Gallery 782, Server 12. I was already here. Already archived. This was not a threat. This was confirmation. I walked to Server 12. Opened the access panel. Inside were rows of drives, each one containing someone's complete existence. I found mine. Pulled it out. Held it in my hands. 6 terabytes. My entire life. Everything I had ever done, said, thought, felt. Reduced to data. A voice spoke behind me. I turned. A man stood there. Middle-aged. Gray suit. Expressionless. He looked tired. Not angry. Not threatening. Just tired. You should not have come here, David, he said. His voice was familiar. The same voice from the radio. What is this place? I asked. You know what it is, he said. You read the file. You know about the archive. You know what we do. Why? I asked. Why document everything? Why archive everyone? He smiled. Not a happy smile. A sad one. Because someone has to, he said. The universe is indifferent, David. It does not care if you exist. It does not remember you when you die. We do. We remember everyone. Every moment. Every decision. Every sin. Every joy. Complete documentation. That is our purpose. Who started this? I asked. Who built the archive? He shook his head. We do not know. The archive was here before us. We just maintain it. Some of us have been here for decades. Some for centuries. Time works differently in the archive. You stop aging. You stop changing. You just document. Forever. That is insane, I said. No, he said. That is the only thing that makes sense. Everything else is chaos. Life is chaos. The archive is order. Perfect, eternal order. He stepped closer. I backed away. You have two choices, David. You can join us. Become an archivist. Help us maintain the documentation. Or you can be archived as a subject. Your file will be completed. Your death will be documented. And you will exist here in data form, forever. Either way, you are part of the archive now. I can just leave, I said. I can walk away. He laughed. You think you have not been archived already? You think your file is not complete? Look around you, David. This is where you have always been. This is where everyone ends up. The physical world is temporary. The archive is eternal. I looked at the drive in my hands. My entire existence, everything I was, contained in 6 terabytes. What if I destroy it? I asked. Then we restore it from backup, he said. We have redundant systems. Distributed storage. Your file exists in 1,000 locations. You cannot delete yourself. No one can. I dropped the drive, ran, found the elevator, hit the call button. Nothing happened. The man appeared behind me. He did not chase me. He just walked. Calm, patient. There's no escape, David, he said. The archive is infinite. You can run through these galleries for eternity and never find the exit. Most subjects try. They wander for years, looking for their own file, trying to understand why they are here. Eventually, they stop. They accept it. They become part of the system. What happens to them? I asked. They change, he said. They stop being human. They become something else. Entities. Data ghosts. Consciousness without form. The archive preserves them, but they lose themselves in the process. That is the real horror, David. Not the documentation. The transformation. You stop being you. You become just another file. Just another entry in an infinite library that no one will ever read. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside, but I did not go up. The elevator descended further, deeper into the archive. When the doors opened again, I was in a different wing. The servers here were older. The labels were handwritten. Some were dated from the 1800s, before digital technology, before computers. What is this? I asked. The man had followed me. He stood beside me, looking at the servers. This is Wing 7, he said. The archive of the deceased. Everyone who has ever lived. Not just since 1987. Everyone. Ever. We have been documenting humanity since the beginning. Different methods. Different media. But always the same purpose. Complete preservation. How? I asked. How is that possible? Because the archive is not human, he said. It was not built by humans. We just maintain it. We are the librarians, the custodians. The archive itself is something older, something vast, a dimension that exists parallel to reality, designed to preserve consciousness. We do not know who created it. We do not know why. We just know it exists. And we are part of it. I walked down the aisle, found a server labeled Unknown Subject, approximately 1850. I opened the access panel. Inside was not a hard drive. It was a book, handwritten, complete documentation of someone's life, birth, death, everything between. They are all here, the man said. Every human who has ever existed, documented, preserved, archived. The digital age made it easier. Cameras, phones, internet. We can document everything now. But we have always been doing this. Always. Well, why? I asked again. Because the universe is meaningless, he said. Life is meaningless. Death is meaningless. The archive is the only thing that gives existence purpose. We remember. We preserve. We document. That is meaning. That is immortality. This is not immortality, I said. This is a prison. Yes, he said. It is both. I found my way back to the elevator. This time it took me up. Back to the warehouse. Back to reality. I walked outside. Got in my car. Drove home. But something had changed. I started noticing things. Cameras everywhere. Phones recording. Devices listening. Every moment captured. Every second documented. I filed a police report. Told them everything. They took my statement. Said they would investigate. 3 weeks later, they called me back. Said they found no evidence of any archive. The warehouse in Vermont was empty. The coordinates I provided led to nothing. The company I mentioned did not exist. They suggested I speak with a therapist. I tried to tell my friends, my family. No one believed me. They said I was stressed, overworked, paranoid. But I know the truth. The archive is real, and it is still documenting me. Right now. This very moment. I can feel it. The weight of infinite observation. The knowledge that everything I do, everything I say, everything I think, is being recorded somewhere. Preserved forever. Archived in a dimension I can never escape. The worst part is not the surveillance. It is the indifference. The archive does not care about me. It does not judge me. It just documents. And when I die, my file will be complete. My consciousness will be preserved in Wing 7. And I will wander those hexagonal galleries forever, searching for meaning in an infinite library of meaningless data. I am sharing this because I want people to understand. Digital surveillance is not the problem. Government overreach is not the problem. The problem is that we are all being archived by something we cannot see, cannot fight, cannot escape. Something that has been documenting humanity since the beginning and will continue long after we are gone. The archive is not evil. It is not malicious. It is simply indifferent. And that indifference is the real horror. We spend our lives trying to matter, trying to be remembered, trying to leave a mark. But the archive does not care. It records everyone equally. Saints and sinners. Heroes and villains. The brilliant and the mundane. We are all just data. Files in an infinite system. Entries in a cosmic library that no one will ever read. I found something else in my file before I left the archive. A predicted date. My death. October 17th, 2026. 9 months from now. Heart attack. 47% probability. The archivist told me predictions are not certain. They are just statistical models. I can change the outcome. Make different choices. Leave longer. But he also told me it does not matter. The archive will document whatever happens. My file will be completed either way. And when it is, I will join the 4.8 billion others in Wing 7. Preserved forever in a dimension of pure data. A consciousness without form. A file without meaning. I check my apartment every day for cameras. I cover my webcam. I turn off my phone. I avoid surveillance. But I know it does not matter. The archive is everywhere. It is in the infrastructure, in the satellites, in the devices we carry, in the air we breathe. We are all being documented, all the time, by something vast and infinite and utterly indifferent to our existence. And when we die, We will not go to heaven or hell. We will go to the archive, to Wing 7, to wander forever through hexagonal galleries filled with servers containing every human life that ever was or ever will be. That is the truth. That is the horror. Not that we are being watched, but that we are being archived by something that will never care what it finds. I am still here, still alive, still generating data. My file grows larger every day. 6.2 terabytes now. Growing. And when I die, when my file is finally complete, I will become like all the others. A data ghost. A consciousness preserved in an infinite library. Wandering forever through dimensions of meaningless documentation. The archive does not sleep. It does not stop. It does not forget. It simply records. And we are all in it. Right now. This very moment. Your file is being updated. Mine is being updated. Everyone reading this is being archived. There is no escape. There never was. The Library of Babel was not fiction. It was a warning. And none of us listened. According to research published by the National Institute of Justice, children who are exposed to violence or who witness abusive behavior have an increased risk of becoming perpetrators themselves later in life. A landmark study followed 900 abused children for 15 to 20 years and found that being physically or mentally abused or neglected as a child increased the likelihood of criminal behavior by 77% for females and significantly higher for males. But what happens when the violence is not just witnessed or experienced, but deliberately taught? When someone takes a child and trains them, coaches them, refines their worst instincts into something calculated and predatory? This actually happened to my family, and I am sharing it because parents need to understand that sometimes the danger does not come from strangers. It comes from the people who know your child best. My son Ethan was 14 years old when I got the call from his school. It was a Tuesday afternoon in November, and I was at work when my phone rang. The caller ID showed the school number, which never meant anything good. I answered, expecting to hear about a missed assignment or a detention. Instead, I heard the guidance counselor's voice, careful, measured, the kind of tone people use when they are trying very hard not to alarm you. Mrs. Harrison, we need you to come in for a meeting. There have been some concerns about Ethan's behavior. What kind of concerns? We would prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come in today? I left work immediately. When I arrived at the school, I was led to a conference room where the guidance counselor, the vice principal, and Ethan's English teacher were waiting. They all had the same expression, concern mixed with something else, something that looked like fear. The guidance counselor slid a piece of paper across the table. We found this in Ethan's notebook during class. His teacher thought it was concerning enough to bring to our attention. I looked at the paper. It was covered in handwriting, neat, precise, organized into numbered lists and paragraphs. At first, I thought it was notes for a class, but as I read, my blood ran cold. How to identify weak people. Watch for those who apologize too much. Notice who avoids eye contact. Pay attention to who flinches when you raise your voice. Look for people who need constant approval. How to create fear without being obvious. Stand too close during conversations. Hold eye contact until they look away first. Touch their belongings without permission. Repeat private information they told you in confidence. How to make someone do what you want. Find out what they are most afraid of losing. Make subtle threats about that thing. Frame your demands as their idea. Reward compliance with attention. Punish resistance with silence. The list went on. Page after page of observations, techniques, strategies. It read like a manual for psychological manipulation, written by someone who understood exactly how to control other people through fear and coercion. Is this Ethan's handwriting? The guidance counselor asked. I stared at the pages, my hands shaking. No, I said. This is not his handwriting. But, even as I said it, I knew whose handwriting it was. I would recognize it anywhere, even though I had not seen it in over 20 years. It was my sister's handwriting. It was Celeste's. The vice principal leaned forward. Mrs. Harrison, we have also received complaints from other students that Ethan has been coaching them on how to intimidate their classmates. 3 separate incidents in the past month, where students approached teachers or the counselor to report that Ethan was teaching them manipulation tactics, showing them how to identify vulnerable peers, and encouraging them to use fear as a tool for social control. That does not sound like Ethan, I said, but my voice was weak. Because the truth was, I had noticed changes in him over the past few months. He had become quieter, more observant, always watching people with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. He asked strange questions, precise questions about human behavior, about what made people afraid, about how to tell when someone was lying. Where did he learn this? The English teacher asked, gesturing to the notebook pages. I did not answer. I could not answer, because I knew exactly where he had learned it. From Celeste. My sister Celeste had been committed to a psychiatric facility when she was 19 years old, after she was convicted of severely harming a child in our neighborhood. The details were horrific, the kind of thing that makes headlines and ruins families. She had befriended a 7-year-old boy, gained his trust, and then used that trust to isolate him, manipulate him, and ultimately hurt him in ways that left permanent scars. The prosecution called it calculated, methodical, predatory. The defense called it mental illness. Either way, she was sent away, and our family never spoke about her again. I had not seen Celeste in over 2 decades. I had not allowed Ethan to know about her. As far as he was concerned, I was an only child. But somehow, he had found her. That night, I confronted him. I waited until we were home, until we were alone in the kitchen, and then I put the notebook on the table between us. Where did you get this? I asked. Ethan looked at the notebook, then at me. His face was calm, expressionless, and that scared me more than anything. 14-year-olds are not supposed to be that calm. I wrote it, he said. No, you did not. This is not your handwriting. Where did you get this, Ethan? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I have been visiting someone. Who? Your sister. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. How do you even know about her? I found old photos in the attic, he said. Pictures of you and her when you were younger. I asked Dad who she was, and he told me the truth. About what she did. About where she is. And you went to see her? I started writing to her first. Then I went to visit. She is at Riverside Psychiatric Hospital, about an hour from here. They let family members visit. You are not family to her, I said, my voice rising. You do not know her. She is dangerous, Ethan. She hurt a child. She destroyed lives. I know, he said. She told me. She told me everything. She said she does not regret what she did, because it taught her something important. It taught her how people work, how fear works, how control works. And she has been teaching me. I felt sick. Why would you want to learn that? Because I am good at it, he said. And there was no pride in his voice, just a simple statement of fact. I always have been. I can read people. I can tell what they want, what they are afraid of, what makes them do what I want them to do. But I did not have the language for it. I did not know how to refine it. Aunt Celeste gave me that. She gave me the framework, the techniques, the vocabulary. She made me better at what I already was. Ethan, listen to me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What Celeste taught you, those are not skills. Those are weapons. Those are ways to hurt people. Only if you use them to hurt people, he said. But they can also be used to protect yourself, to get what you need, to survive. You are 14 years old. You do not need to survive. You need to be a kid. I have never been a kid, he said quietly. I have always been this. I just did not know what to call it until Aunt Celeste showed me. I tried everything. I called the psychiatric hospital and demanded they ban Ethan from visiting. They informed me that since he was family and Celeste had consented to the visits, there was nothing they could do unless I obtained a court order. I contacted a lawyer who told me that getting a restraining order against a psychiatric patient on behalf of a minor would be difficult and expensive, especially since there was no evidence of direct harm. I tried talking to Ethan, reasoning with him, begging him to stop, but every conversation ended the same way. He would look at me with that calm, assessing expression and say, "You are afraid of losing me. You are afraid I will turn into her. That fear is making you irrational. You are easier to manipulate when you are afraid." He was using her techniques on me. His own mother. I started finding more notebooks hidden in his room. Pages and pages of observations, all in Celeste's handwriting, documenting his progress, offering feedback, suggesting refinements. She was grading him like a teacher grades a student, praising him when he successfully manipulated a classmate, critiquing him when he was too obvious, encouraging him to be more subtle, more patient, more effective. One entry read, "Ethan, your instinct to threaten is good, but your execution is still too crude. Remember, the best threats are never spoken aloud. They are implied. They are felt. Make them wonder what you might do rather than telling them what you will do. Fear of the unknown is always more powerful than fear of the known." Another entry. "Excellent work with the Mitchell boy. You identified his weakness, his need for approval from authority figures, and you exploited it perfectly. You convinced him to take the blame for something you did, and he did it willingly because he thought it would make his teacher like him more. This is the mark of a true manipulator. You make them want to help you." I tried taking him to a therapist. The therapist lasted 3 sessions before she called me and said, "Mrs. Harrison, I do not think I can help your son. He is not interested in changing." In fact, he spent our last session analyzing my techniques, pointing out my errors, explaining how he would manipulate me more effectively if he wanted to. I am not qualified to work with a child who displays this level of calculated behavior. The school incidents escalated. A student reported that Ethan had convinced him to steal money from another student's locker, promising to share the profits, and then kept all the money and used the threat of exposure to force the boy to do his homework. Another student said Ethan had learned personal information about her family and used it to blackmail her into writing a report for him. A third student said Ethan had coached him on how to intimidate a younger student, teaching him specific phrases and body language techniques to maximize fear. Each time, Ethan denied nothing. He explained his reasoning calmly, logically, as if he were discussing a strategy in a board game, rather than the psychological manipulation of real people. "I wanted to see if the techniques would work," he said. Aunt Celeste said practice is essential. She said you can read all the theory in the world, but until you apply it, you do not truly understand it. "These are people, Ethan," I said, "not experiments." "Everyone is an experiment," he said. "Everyone is data. That is what Aunt Celeste taught me. That is what makes her different from other people. She sees patterns where others see individuals. She understands systems where others see chaos." In January, Ethan stopped coming home after school. He would disappear for hours, sometimes overnight, refusing to tell me where he had been. I tried tracking his phone, but he had disabled the location services. I tried following him, but he always noticed and changed his plans. Then in late February, he disappeared for 3 days. I called the police, filed a missing persons report, contacted every friend and family member I could think of. On the 3rd day, the police found him. He was with Celeste. Somehow, impossibly, he had convinced the staff at Riverside Psychiatric Hospital to let him stay there. He had told them he was a volunteer, a student working on a social work project, documenting the experiences of long-term patients. He had forged permission slips, created fake school documents, and spent 3 days living in the psychiatric facility, learning from Celeste in person, observing her interactions with other patients, studying her methods in real time. When the police brought him home, he was calm, polite, apologetic. He said all the right things, promised he would not do it again, assured the officers that he understood the seriousness of what he had done. They believed him. I did not. 2 weeks later, he disappeared again. This time, he did not come back. It took the police 4 months to find him. He had been living with a group of people, adults mostly, who Celeste had connected him with through letters. They were not family. They were not friends. They were what the police called a network. People who shared certain interests, certain skills, certain philosophies about control and manipulation, and the use of fear as a tool. When they found him, he was arrested. He was 14 years old, and he was arrested for his involvement in a series of incidents that the police described as coordinated, calculated, and deeply disturbing. The details were not released to the public because of his age, but I knew enough. I knew that children had been hurt. I knew that families had been destroyed. I knew that the techniques Celeste had taught him, the lessons she had written in those notebooks, had been used to cause real harm to real people. Ethan was charged as a juvenile, but the prosecutor pushed for him to be tried as an adult. The case made headlines. Reporters called it unprecedented, a case of a psychiatric patient grooming a minor into criminal behavior through institutional channels. There were investigations, lawsuits, policy changes. Riverside Psychiatric Hospital faced serious consequences for failing to monitor Celeste's correspondence and visits. But none of that mattered to me. What mattered was that my son, my child, the boy I had raised and loved and tried to protect, had been transformed into something I did not recognize. Something cold, calculated, predatory. During the trial, I had to testify. I had to sit in that courtroom and describe how I had found the notebooks, how I had learned about the visits, how I had tried and failed to stop it. And through it all, Ethan sat there with that same calm expression, watching me the way a scientist watches an experiment. At one point, he leaned over to his lawyer and whispered something. The lawyer looked uncomfortable, but nodded. Then Ethan looked at me directly and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you. Thank you." As if I had given him a gift. As if I had delivered him to Celeste on purpose. The jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to a juvenile detention facility until he turns 21, with the possibility of extended supervision depending on his progress. The judge called it one of the most disturbing cases she had ever seen. A child who displayed not mental illness, not trauma, but what she described as cultivated malice. A learned predatory behavior taught and refined by an adult who knew exactly what she was doing. Celeste, for her part, faced no additional charges. She was already institutionalized, already serving an indefinite commitment. But the hospital implemented new restrictions on her communication, her visitation rights, her access to the outside world. And it does not matter. The damage is already done. I visit Ethan once a month at the facility. He is always polite, always cordial, always asking about my life, my work, my health. But I know what he is doing. I recognize the techniques now. I see the way he is studying me, collecting information, filing it away for future use. I know that every visit is just another opportunity for him to practice what Celeste taught him. Last month, during our visit, He said something that has haunted me ever since. You know what the hardest lesson was? He said. The one Aunt Celeste spent the most time teaching me? What? Patience, he said. She told me that most people who try to manipulate others fail because they are in a hurry. They want results immediately. But the best manipulators know that real control takes time. You plant seeds. You wait. You let people think they are making their own choices. And then, when the time is right, you harvest what you have grown. He smiled. I will be 21 in 7 years. And I have learned to be very, very patient. I do not know what will happen when Ethan is released. I do not know if the system can rehabilitate someone like him, someone who does not see people as people, but as tools to be used and discarded. I do not know if the lessons Celeste taught him can be unlearned, or if they are now a permanent part of who he is. What I do know is this. I delivered my son to a monster. I did not know she existed. I did not know he would find her. But that does not change the fact that she took him, molded him, trained him into something I do not recognize. And the worst part is, I think he was always going to be this way. I think Celeste did not create his nature. She just gave it language, structure, purpose. She made him better at being what he already was. And I will spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have stopped it, or if the moment I gave birth to him, his fate was already sealed. Before I tell you what happened in my daughter's room, I need you to understand something about a phenomenon called frogging. It is when someone secretly lives inside an occupied home without the residents knowing, hiding in attics, crawl spaces, or wall cavities. According to home security experts, frogging happens more often than most people realize, with documented cases across the United States of intruders living undetected for weeks, months, or even years. In 2008, a woman in Pennsylvania discovered a man living in her attic on the day after Christmas. In 2012, a woman in South Carolina found her ex-boyfriend in her attic, positioned near a vent so he could watch her sleep. In 2020, a 4-year-old girl in Oklahoma kept telling her parents about strange noises, and they found a man on a mattress in their crawl space. This actually happened to my family, and I am sharing it because children should always be believed when they say something is wrong. My daughter Emma was 5 years old when she started waking up screaming. It began in late September, about 3 months after we moved into a narrow townhouse in Boulder, Colorado. The building was old, built in the 1970s, one of those tall, skinny structures where 3 units are stacked vertically, sharing walls and crawl spaces. We rented the middle unit, sandwiched between a retired couple downstairs and a college student above us. The first time Emma woke up terrified, I thought it was a nightmare. She came into my room at 2 in the morning, crying, shaking, saying there was a man walking in the ceiling above her bed. "Sweetie, there is no man," I told her, holding her close. "You just had a bad dream." "No, Mommy," she whispered, her eyes wide. I heard him walking. He was walking slow, back and forth, and then he stopped right above my bed, and I heard him breathing. I walked her back to her room, turned on all the lights, checked the closet, looked under the bed, showed her the ceiling was solid. Nothing. Just an ordinary room with pale yellow walls, and her stuffed animals lined up on the shelf. I stayed with her until she fell asleep, then went back to bed myself, exhausted. But it happened again the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. Every time, Emma would wake up around 2 in the morning, terrified, insisting she heard footsteps in the ceiling. Slow, deliberate footsteps, like someone pacing. Sometimes she said she heard scratching sounds, like fingernails on wood. Sometimes she said she heard whispering, so quiet she could not make out the words. I started to worry she was developing some kind of sleep disorder. I took her to a pediatrician, who said it was probably night terrors, Common in children her age, nothing to be concerned about. I tried everything. White noise machines, night lights, leaving her door open, but nothing helped. The fear in her eyes was real, visceral, and it broke my heart. Then, on the 7th night, I heard it too. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard a soft thump from above Emma's room. Then another. Then a slow dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across a floor. I sat up, listening. The college student upstairs was rarely home, usually crashing at his girlfriend's place. And even when he was home, I had never heard him moving around at 2 a.m. I got up and went to Emma's room. She was awake, sitting up in bed, staring at the ceiling. "You hear it?" she whispered. I nodded. We sat there together, listening as the sounds continued. Footsteps, slow and methodical, moving from one end of the ceiling to the other. Then silence. Then more footsteps. "Someone is up there," Emma said quietly. "I know," I said. "I will find out who it is." The next morning, I knocked on the upstairs neighbor's door. No answer. I tried 3 more times over the next 2 days. Finally, on the 4th day, he answered. His name was Tyler, a 22-year-old engineering student with messy hair and tired eyes. "Hey, sorry, I have been at my girlfriend's place mostly," he said. "What's up? Have you been walking around in the middle of the night?" I asked. "My daughter's room is right below yours, and she keeps hearing footsteps." He looked confused. "I have not been home at night for like 2 weeks. I pretty much just come back to grab clothes and stuff." "Why?" I felt my stomach drop. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, positive. I am barely here. Is everything okay?" I did not know what to say. If Tyler was not home, then who was walking above Emma's room? That night, I decided to investigate. I waited until 2 a.m, sitting in Emma's room with all the lights off, listening. Right on schedule, the footsteps began. Slow, deliberate, moving across the ceiling from left to right, then stopping. I grabbed a flashlight and went into the hallway. There was a small access hatch in the ceiling near the bathroom, leading to the attic crawl space. I had never opened it before. I pulled over a chair, climbed up, and pushed the hatch open. The smell hit me first. Stale air, body odor, and something else. Something sour. I shined the flashlight into the darkness and saw a narrow space, maybe 3 feet high, with exposed beams and insulation. And then I saw the evidence. A dirty sleeping bag, crumpled in the corner. Empty food wrappers, granola bar wrappers, water bottle, a bucket, and footprints in the dust, leading from the hatch toward the far end of the crawl space. Someone had been living up there. I closed the hatch immediately, climbed down, and called 911. The police arrived within 15 minutes. 2 officers searched the attic with flashlights and found everything I had seen, the sleeping bag, the trash, the footprints, but no person. They checked every inch of the crawl space, including the access points to the units above and below us. Nothing. "Whoever was here is gone now," one of the officers said. "But they were definitely squatting up there. Probably homeless, looking for a warm place to sleep. We will file a report and increase patrols in the area. You should change your locks and install a padlock on that attic hatch." I nodded, but something felt wrong. This did not feel random. This felt deliberate. The next day, I installed a padlock on the attic hatch. I changed the locks on my door. I bought security cameras for the hallway and the front entrance. I did everything I could to make us safe. But the footsteps did not stop. They came every night, always around 2 a.m, always slow, always deliberate. Emma stopped sleeping in her room. She started sleeping in my bed, curled up next to me, trembling every time she heard the sounds. Then I started noticing other things. Small things. My keys would be in a different spot than where I left them. Food would go missing from the pantry, things I knew I had just bought. The bathroom mirror would be fogged up in the morning, even though I had not showered the night before. Once, I found muddy footprints on the kitchen floor, leading from the back door to the hallway. I called the police again. They came, they looked, they found nothing. They suggested I might be stressed, that I might be imagining things. They said the footprints could have been from a delivery person. They said the missing food could be me forgetting. They said the fogged mirror was probably just condensation. But I knew better. Someone was in my home. Someone was moving through the walls, through the crawl spaces, through the places I could not see. And they were watching us. One night, I decided to stay awake and wait. I sat in Emma's room with the lights off, a kitchen knife in my hand, staring at the ceiling. I heard the footsteps start around 1:55 in the morning. Slow, deliberate, moving from the far end of the crawl space toward Emma's room. Then they stopped, directly above her bed. And then I heard it. A soft creaking sound, like someone pressing their weight against the ceiling. Then a whisper, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. Emma. My blood ran cold. I looked up at the ceiling and saw a thin crack running along the plaster, right above the bed. And through that crack, I could see the faintest glimmer of light, like someone shining a flashlight from above. I know you are up there, I said, my voice shaking. I know you are listening. The light disappeared. The footsteps moved away, faster now, retreating to the far end of the crawl space. I heard a scraping sound, like a hatch being opened and closed, and then silence. The next morning, I called a locksmith to come inspect the building. He found something the police had missed. The townhouse units were connected by a series of narrow crawl spaces that ran between the walls and above the ceilings, accessible through small hatches hidden in closets and utility rooms. Someone with knowledge of the building's construction could move between units without ever being seen. This is old construction, the locksmith said. Back in the 70s, they built these places cheap. Hollow walls, shared crawl spaces, minimal insulation. Someone could live in these walls if they wanted to, as long as they knew how to move quietly. I felt sick. Can you lock them? Block them off? I can try, he said. But there are a lot of access points. Some of them you probably do not even know about. That night I packed a bag and took Emma to a hotel. I could not stay in that house anymore. Not knowing someone was in the walls, watching us, listening to us, whispering my daughter's name in the dark. But before we left, I checked my voicemail. There was one new message, left at 2:03 in the morning while I had been in Emma's room. It was a man's voice, calm, measured, eerily familiar. Hey sis, I know you have been looking for me. I have been here the whole time. Watching, listening, learning. You always were so worried about everyone else, but you never worried about me, did you? I have been practicing, you know, moving through the walls without making a sound. It took months to learn the building, to map out every crawl space, every hollow wall, every hidden passage. But now I know this place better than anyone, better than you. And I wanted you to know something. I have been training Emma too, teaching her to listen, to pay attention, to understand that silence is never really silent. There is always someone in the walls, waiting, listening, watching. I will let you go for now. You can run, you can hide, but wherever you go, remember this. The walls are always hollow, and I will always know how to find the spaces in between. I recognized the voice. It was my brother, Cordell. Cordell, who had struggled with mental health issues for years. Cordell, who had been in and out of hospitals and halfway houses. Cordell, who I had not spoken to in over a year because he had become increasingly unstable, paranoid, obsessed with the idea that people were watching him, listening to him, controlling him through walls and ceilings and hidden spaces. Cordell, who knew I had moved to Boulder. Cordell, who had worked construction jobs for years and knew how old buildings were built. Cordell, who had the skills and the knowledge and the motivation to disappear into the walls and live there, unseen, for months. I played the voicemail for the police. They took it seriously this time. They got a warrant and searched the entire building, tearing open walls, checking every crawl space, every attic, every hidden passage. They found more evidence: clothing, food wrappers, a notebook filled with sketches of the building's layout, detailed notes about my schedule, about Emma's routine, about when we were home and when we were not. But they did not find Cordell. He had vanished. We never went back to that townhouse. I broke the lease, lost my deposit, and moved us to a different city. I changed my phone number, my email, my social media accounts. I did everything I could to disappear. But I still think about what Cordell said. About training Emma. About teaching her to listen. And I think about how Emma still wakes up sometimes in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, listening to sounds that I cannot hear. 3 months after we moved, the police called me. They had found Cordell. He had been arrested after breaking into another townhouse in Denver, found hiding in the crawl space above a family's bedroom. When they searched his belongings, they found photos of Emma, printed from social media, along with a handwritten note. The note said, "She understands now." They both do. The walls are always listening. And so am I. Cordell is in a psychiatric facility now, awaiting trial. The doctors say he is suffering from severe paranoid delusions, that his obsession with walls and hidden spaces is a manifestation of his untreated mental illness. They say he believed he was protecting me by watching over us, by teaching Emma to be aware of her surroundings. But I do not think it was protection. I think it was control. And I think he succeeded. Because even now, in our new apartment, in a building with solid walls and no attic access, Emma still wakes up at 2 in the morning. And when I ask her what is wrong, she looks at me with those wide, haunted eyes and whispers, "Mommy." I can hear him walking. And I do not know if she is remembering the past, or if Cordell was right. Maybe the walls are always hollow. Maybe silence is never really silent. Maybe there is always someone in the spaces in between, waiting, listening, watching. I check the ceiling every night now. I listen for footsteps. I watch for cracks in the plaster. And I wonder if we will ever really be safe, or if Cordell taught us something we can never unlearn. That the places we cannot see are never really empty. And the people we trust can become the monsters in our walls. According to cybersecurity experts, the dark web represents less than 0.01% of all internet content, yet it harbors some of the most disturbing activities known to law enforcement. Research has documented assassination marketplaces, contract killer services, and encrypted job boards for illegal activities, many of which turn out to be elaborate scams. Sites claiming to offer hitman services have been investigated, with most proving to be fraudulent. But actual dark web murder plots have been documented, leading to arrests and, in some cases, real victims. What I discovered was not a scam. It was not role-playing. And by the time I understood what I was looking at, it was already too late to walk away. This actually happened to me. And I am sharing it because people need to understand that some rabbit holes on the internet do not lead to answers. They lead to places where you become part of the mystery yourself. I first heard about Riverside Quiet Solutions on a Reddit thread in late January. I was 28 years old, working as a freelance web developer, spending most of my time browsing obscure corners of the internet, looking for interesting projects and strange anomalies. The thread was titled "Weird Image Hosting Site with Hidden Code," and it had been posted by a user named Tech Ghost, who claimed to have found something unusual. The post described an image hosting site called Riverside Quiet Solutions, run by a user who went by the handle Silver Fox. According to TechGhost, the site appeared normal on the surface, just a place to upload and share photos, but buried in the source code were messages that did not belong there. Phrases like wet work completed, package delivered, and references to something called the birthday celebration scheduled for February 14th. Most of the comments dismissed it as an ARG, an alternate reality game, or maybe just someone's creative writing project. But something about it bothered me. The phrasing was too clinical, too specific. So, I decided to investigate. I found the site easily enough. riversidequietsolutions.com. The homepage was bare bones, just a simple upload interface and a gallery of random images, travel photos, landscapes, nothing suspicious. But when I viewed the page source, I saw what TechGhost had been talking about. Hidden in comments within the HTML were messages. Subject Alpha, confirmed. Route 5, 10. Timeline, 2 weeks. Beta team, standby. Birthday celebration, February 14th. High value target. Clean execution required. Payment received. Ironclad protocol. No traces. I felt my skin crawl. This did not read like fiction. This read like operational planning. I spent the next week digging deeper. I traced the site's registration to a proxy service in Eastern Europe. I analyzed the upload patterns and noticed that images were being posted at regular intervals, always late at night, always from different IP addresses, routed through VPNs. And buried in the metadata of some of these images were GPS coordinates. I mapped them. They corresponded to locations across the United States, Canada, and parts of Europe. Some were in major cities. Some were in remote rural areas. And every single one of them had a date associated with it. The earliest date had already passed. January 19th. The coordinates pointed to a small town in Iowa. I searched for news from that area around that date and found a story about a missing person, a local businessman named David Garrett, who had disappeared without a trace on January 20th. No body, no evidence, no leads. Then I noticed something else. One of the hidden messages mentioned a Route 510 package. I cross-referenced and found coordinates for a location along Route 510 in New Hampshire. The date listed was February 9th, 8 years earlier. I searched for incidents on Route 510 around that date and found something that made my blood run cold. A 21-year-old nursing student named Sarah Collins had disappeared after a car accident on Route 510 on February 9th, 2004. Her car was found abandoned, doors locked, no sign of her. The case had never been solved. And here, embedded in the code of this image hosting site, were coordinates and dates that matched her disappearance perfectly. I should have stopped there. I should have gone to the police. But I did not. I kept digging. I found a YouTube account linked in one of the image file names. The account was called Route 510 Observer. It had 3 videos, all uploaded on February 9th over the past 3 years. The first video was shaky footage from inside a car, driving along a dark rural road. Text appeared at the bottom, Route 510, Happy Anniversary. The second video was more disturbing. It showed a man sitting in a dimly lit room, laughing, a high-pitched, manic laugh that lasted for nearly a minute. At the end, he turned directly to the camera, winked, and said, "Someone knows something." Then the screen cut to black with the words, 8 years. Still watching. The third video was the worst. It was a crude animation, a stick figure map showing a road, a crash site, and a red X marked in the woods nearby. Text scrolled across the screen. She never left. She is waiting, just like the others. I reported the videos to the police, sent them everything I had found. They thanked me for the information and said they would look into it. 2 weeks later, they called me back. They had investigated the YouTube account and tracked it to a man named Gerald Peterson, a 46-year-old with a history of mental illness. Peterson had been questioned and released. The police believed he was seeking attention, using Sarah Collins's disappearance to make himself seem important. There was no evidence linking him to the actual crime. But Peterson was not the end of it. He was part of something bigger. I went back to the Riverside Quiet Solutions site and found a new message in the code. Observer compromised. Shut down Route 510 operation. Redirect to archival project. Subject Silver Fox. Proceed with Phase 2. I did not understand what that meant until I found the third piece of the puzzle. Buried in one of the image uploads was a link to a video file hosted on an obscure file sharing site. The file was labeled Educational Material 1987. I downloaded it. It was old, grainy footage from a home video camera, dated 1987. The video showed a young man, maybe 20 years old, standing in what looked like a basement or garage. He was holding a human skull. "Okay, so this is how you do it," the man said, his voice calm, matter-of-fact. He had a slight stutter. "First, you need to locate the grave. Older cemeteries are better because the ground is softer and security is usually minimal. You want to go at night, obviously, around 2 or 3 in the morning when no one is around." He went on to describe in disturbing detail how to exhume a body, how to clean the bones, how to transport them without being caught. He talked about selling them, about a black market for medical skeletons that had emerged after certain countries banned the export of human remains. "Me and my crew? We are planning something big," he said, grinning at the camera. "We are going after Harry Houdini's grave. Imagine that. The great magician's bones. That would be worth a fortune." The video ended with the man placing the skull back on a shelf where several other skulls were lined up. All different sizes, all clean, all labeled with handwritten tags. I felt sick. I ran a reverse image search on a screenshot from the video and found references to it on several conspiracy theory forums. People had been trying to identify the man for years. Some believed the video was authentic. Some believed it was a hoax. No one knew for sure. But here it was, linked directly from the Riverside Quiet Solutions site, alongside messages about contract killings and coordinates for missing persons cases. I started connecting the dots. Riverside Quiet Solutions was not just an image hosting site. It was a hub, a place where people involved in dark, illegal activities could communicate, share information, coordinate operations. The image hosting was a front. The real business was happening in the code, in the metadata, in the hidden messages that only certain people knew how to read. And I had stumbled into the middle of it. 2 days after I downloaded the grave robbing video, I received an email. The sender was listed as Riverside Admin. The subject line said, "You have been noticed." The body of the email contained a single sentence. "Curiosity has led you to places you do not belong. We suggest you stop digging before you become part of the archive." I deleted the email immediately. I cleared my browser history. I wiped my hard drive and reinstalled my operating system. I stopped using my regular internet connection and switched to a different provider. I thought I had covered my tracks, but they had already found me. A week later, I found a photograph slipped under my apartment door. It was a picture of me, taken from across the street, standing at my window, looking out. I had not noticed anyone watching. I had not seen anyone with a camera. On the back of the photograph, written in neat handwriting, was a message. Subject Omega, cataloged. Observation period. Active. Recommendation, compliance. I went to the police again. I showed them everything. The emails, the photograph, the website, the videos, the hidden messages. They took it seriously this time. They opened an investigation. They contacted federal cybercrime units. They traced IP addresses and server locations. And they found nothing. The Riverside Quiet Solutions website had been taken down. The YouTube account was deleted. The file-sharing links were dead. Every piece of evidence I had shown them had vanished from the internet, as if it had never existed. The detective assigned to my case looked at me with a mixture of pity and suspicion. "Are you sure you did not imagine some of this?" he asked. Internet rabbit holes can make people paranoid. Sometimes people see patterns where there are none. But I had not imagined it. I had screenshots. I had saved files. I had proof. Except when I went home and checked my backup drives, they were all corrupted. Every single file related to Riverside Quiet Solutions was gone, replaced with empty folders or error messages. Someone had remotely accessed my system and erased everything. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I have received 4 more photographs. Each one shows me in a different location, going about my daily life, unaware that I am being watched. The grocery store, the coffee shop, my gym, my friend's house. The messages on the back vary. Subject Omega. Behavior compliant. Observation continues. Subject Omega. Non-threat assessment confirmed. Subject Omega. Archive status pending. I do not know who they are. I do not know what they want. I do not know if the site was real, or if I uncovered something that was never meant to be found. But I know this. That missing businessman from Iowa, David Garrett, was found dead 2 months after his disappearance. The official cause of death was listed as a hunting accident. Sarah Collins, the nursing student from Route 510, has never been found. Her case remains open, unsolved, a mystery that haunts her family to this day. And the grave robbing video? I found a reference to it in an old newspaper article from 1993. A group of men had been arrested for exhuming bodies from a cemetery in Pennsylvania and selling the bones on the black market. One of them matched the description of the man in the video. His name was Raymond Clark. He died in prison in 2002. But none of that explains why his video was hosted on a site that seemed to be coordinating contract killings. None of it explains the hidden messages, the coordinates, the dates that matched real disappearances. And none of it explains why I'm still being watched. Last week, I received an email from a new address. The subject line said, "Final notice." The message read, "You were given the opportunity to walk away. You chose to investigate. You chose to involve authorities. You chose to become a liability. We do not eliminate liabilities without cause, but we do monitor them indefinitely. This is your final notice. Continue your life. Speak to no one about what you found. Forget about Riverside Quiet Solutions. Forget about the messages. Forget about the coordinates. If you comply, you will live a long, quiet life. If you do not, you will become part of the archive. Subject Omega. Status pending. I have not spoken to the police since. I have not posted about this online. I have not told my friends or my family. But I am telling you now, because I need someone to know. I need someone to understand that what I found was real. That the internet holds secrets darker than most people can imagine. That there are networks, invisible and untraceable, where people coordinate crimes, share information, and erase anyone who gets too close. I do not know if they will find out that I am sharing this. I do not know if this will be the thing that pushes me from pending to archived. But if something happens to me, if I disappear, if I become another unsolved case, another missing person with no leads and no evidence, I want people to know that it was not random. It was not an accident. It was because I looked where I was not supposed to look. Because I found messages in the code that were never meant to be seen. because I connected dots that were supposed to stay separate. And because once you are in the archive, you never really leave. I still receive photographs, once a week, like clockwork. Each one a reminder that they are watching, that they know where I am, that they could reach me any time they want. The most recent one was taken yesterday. It shows me sitting at my desk, typing on my computer, writing this account. On the back, in that same neat handwriting, is a message. Subject Omega, non-compliance detected. Archive status, updated. Final warning issued. Next contact, terminal. I do not know what that means, but I think I have about a week to find out. If you are reading this, and something has happened to me, please understand that the internet is not just a tool for information and entertainment. It is a battlefield. And some battles are fought in code, in hidden messages, in encrypted communications that most people will never see. I saw them, and now I cannot unsee them. The archive is real. The watchers are real. And somewhere out there, buried in the source code of websites that look perfectly innocent, are messages that could unravel lives, solve mysteries, or destroy anyone who gets too close. I just wish I had never started looking. Because once you see the messages in the code, you cannot pretend they are not there. And once they see you seeing them, you become part of the archive. Forever. According to the National Crime Information Center, there are approximately 600,000 people reported missing in the United States every year. Most are found within 48 hours. Some are never found at all. And then there are the ones who come back, but when they do, they are not the same person who left. This is about the third kind. This actually happened to my family, and I am sharing it because I need people to understand that sometimes the person you are looking for might be the person you should fear most. My brother Peter called me at 2:37 in the morning on a Tuesday in October. I had not heard from him in 6 months, not since our sister Dorothy disappeared 6 years earlier. When I saw his name on my phone screen, I almost did not answer. But something in my gut told me to pick up. What I heard on the other end was not a voice. It was breathing. Ragged, wet, like someone who had been running or crying or both. Then came the whisper, so quiet I had to press the phone against my ear until it hurt. She came back. Peter, what are you talking about? Dorothy came back. The line went dead, because that is what Dorothy was to us. Dead. She had vanished without a trace 6 years ago at age 24. And despite a massive search effort that included hundreds of volunteers, bloodhounds, helicopters, and a dedicated FBI task force, no evidence of her fate was ever found. No body, no clothing, no phone, no sign of struggle. After 3 years of searching, our parents had her declared legally dead. 7 hours later, I was driving a rental car down the winding dirt road that led to our childhood home in rural Missouri. Peter had stayed behind there after Dorothy disappeared, in the house our grandfather built in 1953, surrounded by 60 acres of timber and nothing else for miles. In the dying light of October, it looked like something out of a nightmare, with peeling paint, overgrown yards, and every window dark except for one on the second floor. The front door was unlocked. I called out for Peter as I stepped inside. The house smelled wrong, stale, sour, like unwashed laundry and something else I could not identify. I heard footsteps above me, slow, deliberate, crossing the second-floor hallway. Up here. Careful with your voice. I climbed the stairs. Peter stood outside the door to what used to be Dorothy's bedroom. He looked like he had aged 20 years. His hair was longer, streaked with gray, and his face was gaunt, hollow. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold. They were wide, unblinking, filled with something I can only describe as absolute terror. "You should not have come," he whispered. "She will know now. She listens." He put a finger to his lips, then gestured for me to follow him downstairs to the kitchen. Only then did he speak normally, though still barely above a whisper. "She came back 18 months ago," he said. "Just showed up at the door one night, looking exactly the same as the day she disappeared. Same clothes, same haircut, everything. I keep her in her room now. The door is locked from the outside." "You locked our sister in a room?" "I had to," he said. "You do not understand. When she first came back, I thought it was a miracle. But she's different now. She knows things she should not know, private things, secrets, and she uses them against you. She gets inside your head. She told me that if I ever tried to contact anyone about her return, she would destroy me. Part of me wanted to believe he was having some kind of breakdown, that grief and isolation had driven him to delusion. But another part of me, the part that remembered Dorothy, the sister who always seemed to know exactly what you were thinking, could not dismiss his words entirely. "Show me," I said. He nodded slowly. "But you have to understand something first. The walls in this house, they are hollow. Old construction, no insulation between the studs. She listens through them. She knows everything that happens here. Every word, every movement." We went back upstairs. Peter led me to Dorothy's door, which had a deadbolt lock installed on the outside. He pulled a key from his pocket, his hand trembling. "Do not believe anything she says," he whispered. "And whatever you do, do not unlock the door from the inside." He turned the key. The door swung open. The room was stripped. The bed frame was there, but no mattress, no sheets. The dresser was gone. The walls were bare. The only thing in the room was a small pile of blankets in the corner and a bucket. And standing in the center of the room, backlit by the single window, was Dorothy. She looked exactly as I remembered her. Same long dark hair, same delicate features, same slight build. She wore the same clothes she had been wearing the night she disappeared, a blue cardigan and jeans. But there was something wrong about the way she stood. Too still, too rigid. Then she smiled. "Hello, brother," she said, and her voice was soft, almost kind. "I knew you would come eventually. Peter has been trying so hard to keep you away, but I knew he would break. He always breaks." "Dorothy? Do you remember the last thing you said to me before I disappeared?" She continued. "You told me I was being selfish for wanting to move across the country. You also told Dad you thought I was using drugs." "I know, because I heard you two talking about it when you thought I was asleep." "That was private," I said. "There is no such thing as private," she said. "Not anymore. Not for me. I learned that where I was. The walls have been listening to me for so long. Now I listen to them. And they tell me such interesting things. They told me you were coming. They told me you were going to call the police. And when you do, I will tell them how Peter has been keeping me locked in this room for 18 months, how he takes away my food, my water, my dignity, how he has been torturing me. They will believe me, because I am the victim. I am the missing girl who finally came home." Peter pulled me back and slammed the door shut, locking it quickly. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the deadbolt. "You see?" he said. "She has created a perfect trap. If I keep her locked up and anyone finds out, I will be the criminal. If I let her go, she will destroy me. Every time I try to tell someone about her, I freeze. I cannot make the words come out." "How does she leave the room?" I asked. "You said she leaves at night." "She does. I do not know how. I have checked the door 100 times. The lock is solid, the walls are intact. But I hear her moving through the house in the middle of the night. And in the morning things are different. Food is missing. Things are moved. Once I found muddy footprints leading from the back door to the stairs." Then he told me about the disappearances. 3 months after Dorothy returned, a college student named Michael Bennett disappeared after leaving a bar in town. They found his car abandoned, driver's side door open, keys still in the ignition. 2 months later, a woman named Sarah Mitchell vanished from a grocery store parking lot. Security cameras showed her loading bags into her trunk, then suddenly looking toward the tree line. She walked toward the trees and never came back. 5 people in 18 months, all within a 30-mile radius, all vanishing without explanation. I found Sarah Mitchell's driver's license in Dorothy's room, Peter said, hidden under the floorboards. But when I went to get it to show the police, it was gone. We went back upstairs. I needed to see the room again. Peter unlocked the door. This time, Dorothy was lying on the pile of blankets, her eyes closed. I stepped into the room. The walls were standard drywall, painted a faded yellow. Then, I noticed something. In the corner, near the blankets, there was a small hole in the wall, no bigger than a quarter. It went straight through the drywall, into the hollow space between the studs. She listens through these, Peter said quietly. The whole house is full of them. Little holes, drilled through the walls. So small you would never notice them unless you were looking. She hears everything. I realized what she had done. She had turned the entire house into an extension of herself, a network of hidden pathways and listening posts, so that nowhere was safe, nowhere was private. We need to get you out of here, I said. Tonight. I have tried, Peter said. I cannot. Every time I get to the door, I think about leaving her here alone, and I cannot do it. She is still our sister. Behind us, Dorothy opened her eyes. You cannot stop me, she said softly. I am already free. I have been free since the moment I returned. This room, this door, this lock, they are nothing. Peter thinks he has imprisoned me, but he is the one who is trapped. He is trapped by his guilt, his fear, his love for a sister who no longer exists. And you, dear brother, you are trapped by your curiosity. I am leaving, I said, and I am taking Peter with me. No, you are not, she said, because if you do, I will follow you. I will find you in whatever city you run to. I will knock on your door in the middle of the night. I grabbed Peter and pulled him out of the room. I slammed the door and locked it. But I turned around, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The hallway was full of them. Not people, but shapes, shadows, standing perfectly still in the dim light. I counted 6 of them, spread out along the hallway, blocking our path to the stairs. Then from inside the locked room I heard Dorothy laugh. They came with me, she said through the door. The others, the ones who did not make it home, they wait for me. They help me. The shapes moved, faster than anything should move, and suddenly they were surrounding us. I felt cold air, icy, sharp, and then a whisper in my ear. Not from Dorothy, but from something else. She promised us you. I do not remember what happened next. I woke up in my rental car, parked on the side of the highway, miles from the house. It was morning. My phone was buzzing with missed calls from Peter. You have to come back, he said when I answered. I tried to leave after you did, but I could not. I got to the end of the driveway and then I just stopped. I am stuck here. I should have driven to the nearest police station, but instead, I found myself driving back to the house. When I got there, the front door was open. The house was silent. I climbed the stairs. Dorothy's door was open. The room was empty. And on the floor, written in what looked like dried mud, was a message. I told him to confess. He will. And when they come for him, I will be gone. But I will not forget about you, brother. I will come for you when the time is right. I ran downstairs and found Peter in the kitchen. He was on the phone, his voice calm, measured, confessing to everything. To keeping Dorothy locked in her room. To the missing driver's license. To knowing about the disappearances. He hung up and looked at me. She told me what to say. She promised if I confessed, she would let me sleep again. I have not slept in 18 months. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They arrested Peter. They searched the house. They found the holes in the walls, the stripped bedroom, the bucket. They did not find Dorothy. They did not find any sign of the missing people. I tried to tell them what had really happened, but every time I opened my mouth to describe Dorothy, the words died in my throat, just like they had for Peter. That was 6 months ago. Peter is still awaiting trial. The psychiatrists say he is suffering from a severe dissociative episode. That isolation and grief drove him to create an elaborate delusion about our dead sister returning. I know better. I know because 3 weeks ago I heard scratching in the walls of my apartment in Denver. Small, deliberate sounds, like fingers scraping against drywall. I know because I found a driver's license under my couch cushion. It belonged to Sarah Mitchell. And I know because last night I woke up at 2:37 in the morning to the sound of someone standing outside my bedroom door, breathing slowly, patiently. She is here now, waiting. And soon, it will be my turn to understand.